repetitive registration. So here it says follow the dry principle while registering a user. So if you don't know what the dry principle is, the dry principle means don't repeat yourself. Okay, don't repeat yourself. So the dry principle, if you look it up, it states that every piece of knowledge must have a single authoritative representation within a system. Okay, so violations of this are actually called wet. So you're doing the opposite of dry, which is called wet, right? So that wet stands for write everything twice, we enjoy typing, waste everyone's time. You should write your code logically, and your code should not repeat itself. Okay, so this is the dry principle. Now it wants you to follow the dry principle when registering a user. So if we go into user registration, so let's go to login here. And it says not yet a customer. Okay, well, in this situation, if we're going to follow the dry principle, where can we repeat ourselves twice? Right here. So we're looking for an error in terms of testing, and this is just showing you a way. The purpose behind this is to show you a way to test this password authentication. So go ahead and put in an email account. I'll just say test@test.com. And what you're going to want to do is type in a 5-character password. On the second one, go ahead and start typing that 5-character password. And it should be popping up for you. It should say, hey, let me refresh this. It should say for you guys, there we go. Now we're getting the error handling. So test@test.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me. And then you start typing a password. It should say, hey, your passwords do not match, right? Okay, make them match. Now come back up here, change it from a 5 or 6 or whatever. Now these passwords don't match, but it's not telling us that they don't match. Right, so this is an issue. This is an error, especially if we can submit this and register that user. So put your eldest sibling's name, middle name, we'll just say Bob. And let's try to register a user. And we did. We successfully registered a user. So repetitive registration's complete. And we could see what password that actually took. So it took the first password. The second password check was never even being supplied to the system. It's actually just taking the first password and checking if that second password was a match. As soon as it was a match, it goes ahead and stops, right? It stops looking for it. So let's go ahead and log back out. We're going to stay on the unauthenticated side for a little bit longer. KH405, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so from here, let's look at a couple more challenges. So we're going to look at some improper input validation here. And we're going to actually write our own code. So let's write our own code and talk about let's talk about some HTML forms and how they work, and then you'll get to see this in an example. So if we come over, and actually I'm going to load up Kali for this. I'll make this bigger for you guys. Now, what I'm about to show you, I have seen on web app pen tests before, in the very recently. So this is an issue with how some people decide to store credentials. So let me show you. So let's go ahead and write an HTML document. So the document I want to write is going to be very simple. Let's just say gedit, and we'll say we'll just call this index.html. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say HTML head like this, we'll do a title, and we'll just call this my form. If I could type and kill the title, and then we'll put in the body. This is pretty standard HTML, right? We could declare the doc type at the top if we want. So from here, let's go ahead and put in a div, and we're going to put in a header. We're going to say super secret creds, right? Thanks for not using Vim. You're welcome. /h3 here. And let's go ahead and tab in, and we'll add another div, and let's add a form inside this div. So we'll add a form, and we'll break a line, give some spacing. And for the form, we'll say username. We'll break it out, and then we're gonna put an input field here. Input type equals text, and then we'll say name equals username. So we're just gonna declare a name for this input, and then we'll give it a value of like Joe. That gedit tab in Yo. All right, break a line here, right? And then let's put a password. And again, we'll do input, and then we'll give it a type of password. We'll give it a name of password, and we'll even give it a value of password. Okay. So now let's kill the input here. And let's kill the form. And I didn't kill this out. Kill the form. Kill the div. And the other div. And then end your body, your head, and your HTML. I will give this a second for you guys to catch up with what I just typed. So all we have here, if you're not very familiar with HTML, is we just wrote a quick little header. It says super secret creds. We've got two fields here. We've got one that's going to say Joe, one that's going to be hidden password field. Again, I have seen this in the recent testing experience. So let's go ahead and save this. And then we can just say Firefox index HTML. Did I screw up my I screwed up my code? That's fine. I'm not concerned. Yeah, it should go body, then head, and then HTML. Or however you've got it. So anyway, if we look here, we've got a username and a password. Doesn't look beautiful. Doesn't need to, right? We don't know what this password is, right? It's asterisk out. If you have ever been in an application and you see your password stored like this, always good to know if you could just right click and inspect the element and see if there's anything that you can do to tamper with this. So we look down into the form, we come down here, and you see that the value here is, or the type is considered password. But what if we just change this to text? And then it reveals the text that's sitting in behind here. So anyway, so we've got the password revealed. Now this is an easy way to reveal passwords. You're welcome. That guy was getting annoying. Anyway, we don't have tolerances for know-it-alls on the stream, guys. So from here, this example, this demonstration that I'm showing you, the whole reasoning behind it is because that leads into what we're going to see, and this is very real world. So if we go back into our application and we say, okay, back to the scoreboard. Okay, so we are looking to solve now. Which one are we after? We are after the 0 stars. Okay, so this is the next one we're after. 0 stars. So in order to do 0 stars, we got to give a devastating 0-star feedback to the store. Okay, so if we go to contact us and go to customer feedback, this is where we give feedback. Now, we can write a comment, something like, you suck. I am a keyboard warrior who leaves terrible comments on pages, but never reveals my true identity. Does that sound like it came from the heart? Because it did. All right, 3 times 8 is 24. Times 10 is 240. Solve the CAPTCHA. Now we still can't hit submit, right? It wants us to give some sort of rating. Okay, it wants us to give 1 through 5. But in order to actually complete this challenge, we have to leave a 0-star rating. How are we going to do that? Well, I just showed you we need to go back to the inspect element and try to play with the UI here. Okay, so we'll scroll down. We find the div exactly that we need. Keep clicking in. You can just highlight over what you want. Now we found the button. Okay, so you see the submit type here is set to disabled. What if we just edited that and said enabled? And look, now the submit button is able to be submitted. Right? So all we did was mess with the JavaScript here on the UI, and now we're able to submit. And I just cleared a couple other ones because I forged feedback as somebody else. It was stored in here. This is kind of cheating. I'm going to wipe this, but not going to worry about that too much. Okay. So from here, we've got a few challenges left, right? Privacy policy, that is on the authenticated side. XXS tier 2 or tier 0 is on the authenticated side. I want to clear out the unauth side first. Let's go ahead and go to error handling and talk about how you're supposed to provoke that error. So one way to do it is through the login page. We can, if we wanted to test for something like SQL injection, we can just type in like, you know, apostrophe here and see if we can inject anything. And look, we got an object error. Right away, this throws an error. So when you see an error on some sort of injection like this isn't good. And we'll talk more about injections and especially SQL injection throughout this course. We don't need to know what it is right now. We need to know that if we fuzz parameters, if we start fuzzing around and where places SQL might be, we might identify an issue like here, right? We can type in whatever we want and we're getting this error, and we can inspect the element and we should be able to look at the errors as well, and see what issues are going on. It's a little easier to see. It's a little easier to see on Chrome, but you can see that this is going to be SQLite as well. So when I said earlier that Burp Suite identified SQLite, it is correct. And it's identifying it in the response with how it's coming back. And it's actually, some of this is actually pulling down. You can see the server error here that's pulling down the response. If we were to push this through to a repeater, and I'll bring this and make this bigger, that way we can see exactly where it's seeing another error page here. What's going on is it's looking through the rest right here at the products, and we haven't gotten this far, so don't worry about this. But you can see that it's injecting here just this one one apostrophe, right? And through that apostrophe airs out the server. And it causes the server to go crazy. You start seeing SQL syntax errors. And when you see SQL syntax errors like this tells us that we have SQL injection, right? Somebody said you've never seen a SQL injection finding in Burp in real life. I've seen them come up. I've never seen a valid SQL injection in Burp Suite either. So they're not as common as they used to be in terms of finding it like that. So most of this is all testing manually. So in this instance, we would fuzz parameters just like you see here. If we see this Q equals, we're going to fuzz this parameter. And we get this error like this, right? This is obvious SQL injection. Now we could have an instance where we don't show anything here, but we still actually have SQL injection, and that's called blind SQL injection. Blind SQL injection, again, we'll talk about that as well, but that we're going to start issuing time delayed commands. We'll say, hey, delay for a second, delay for 10 seconds, and then you send it over and you wait for a response. Does the response come back in 1 second? Does it come back in 10 seconds? Then right? So, but again, right now, we just need to identify that we can cause an error, and here it is. We can see there's SQL errors. So Burp did identify this one correctly. This actually triggered an issue for a later scoreboard. So it got us one scoreboard. I don't know if it'll actually show here. We've triggered a couple in 2 and 3, and that's fine. We'll cover these again next week. So, all right. So that leaves us with 3. And this is where the course gets to the fun stuff. You guys have been with me and you're like, this is boring, and that's fine. At this point, it should get interesting. So where we're at here, we are going to talk about cross-site scripting. And when we talk about cross-site scripting, all we have to do is think about it as malicious code injection. That's all we're doing, malicious code injection, okay? And we're going to be injecting JavaScript. Now, with this malicious code injection, we can do a lot of stuff, right? We can steal cookies, we can take over sessions, we can do key logging, we can inject beef hooks, etc. There's a lot of things that you can do with cross-site scripting. So with that being said, today we're just going to demonstrate that cross-site scripting exists, and then as we go, we'll build upon it. So in this instance today, we're going to be talking about 2 types of cross-site scripting. Ideally, there are 3, okay? Not ideally, there are 3. We'll talk about all 3 today, but we'll only be showing 2. Now, the 3 types are reflected, stored, and DOM. Reflected is what it sounds like. I insert it on a page, a pop-up comes up with the injection and says, hey, you injected this. This does not go into the server, right? This is client side. So it doesn't get stored anywhere, and that's why it's called reflected. Stored would be like putting something in a comment field, having that sit on the page, and then when somebody goes to access that comment field, it pops up for a different user, for the same user, doesn't matter. That's stored. It gets stored on the server, and it's there permanently until it's removed. The last one is DOM based, right? So DOM is the document object model. It provides the object-oriented representation of HTML documents, right? So this is your DOM here. We can use the DOM to generate dynamic content like you see here and get malicious with it. Now, there is a fantastic website that I've already lost. Let me see if I can pull it up. Nope, not there. Let me grab the link. There is a great website I found, so... cip.ch, here it is. I'll post this in the chat. I had it up. Oh, I know where it is. It's over here. So this website, I'll post this in the chat. This is a good example of DOM based. And before we go too deep into DOM, let me give you an example, just write it out real quick, of what injection looks like. So let's go into, we'll just call this XSS. And let's talk about what cross-site scripting looks like. So let's say that we have a PHP document, right? Let's just call this index.php. And in index.php, when you go to the home page, the PHP might look something like this. You say PHP, and then you have a username, and that is set to like get username, right? So we're going to pull down the username. And then we pull down the username, as you guys have seen in the corner of a web page or wherever it is. It might say something like, hi, username. Something like that. Okay? And then we'll just close this off. Okay. So if we were to put something in index.php and we said username equals Heath, then it would just come back and it would say something like, hi, Heath. Right? But what if we did something malicious like index.php username equals script alert 1 script? Now it's going to run hi script alert 1 script, and that should pop up an alert on your page. It's taking this and injecting it into this echo, and it's echoing it back. And this is all it is. We're injecting. This is a very, very, very basic example, but this is what injection is. We're taking something malicious and we're throwing it in, right? So let's talk about the first challenge, and we're gonna go out of order, and we'll talk about the DOM base. Now, somebody said DOM base is difficult. DOM base is very difficult to wrap your mind around. It's very, very similar to a reflected, but it's not reflected. Okay, they're slightly different in the way that it's handled. So DOM has what's called a source and a sink, right? So when a user puts in malicious input, that is that's what's called the source, right? Wherever you enter in that malicious input, that's the source. Where that's executed is called the sink. And this article that I want to show you was fantastic. I don't think that there's really a better way to describe this. This has got so much information in it, and I'll put this in the YouTube video description if you're watching it later. So it covers what DOM-based XSS is, and why I really like this is here it's got the nice HTML already written out. So if you see the HTML here, what's going on? They've got a JavaScript script here, okay? And they've created a variable called source, and they just say hello, and similar example to what I was saying, right? Hello, Heath. Hello, whoever. They're doing this decode URI because most modern browsers nowadays will actually, will obfuscate this malicious content. So for the example of this, they're going to not allow that to happen, and we're going to go ahead and just have a hash split. So this hash split is going to be, if you see like the www.whatever.com hash here, you're going to put your code in after the hash. So where we inject this, we're injecting here, right? This is what we're going to take advantage of. This is the source. Again, where we are putting in our malicious input, this is the source. Now we're going to take that input and we're going to print that out to the web page, right? We're going to put this on the inner HTML. And that is the sink. This is where it is executed, is right here. So if you were to copy this and paste this into an HTML file, and you then ran this simple script here, you would get an alert. You would get a pop-up. So all we're doing, again, we're injecting this malicious code into this area right here and having something happen. We can get very, very dangerous with this. Now, in terms of reflected and DOM-based cross-site scripting, you have to have some sort of social engineering involved with it. So you will figure out that the application's vulnerable, and let's say you want to take advantage of an admin user and steal their cookie. Well, you're going to have to phish the admin user or do something to get them to open a link that will send that cookie back to you, and that way you have access to to impersonate that user. With reflected, same thing. So, right, reflected and DOM are the same thing. When it comes to stored, a user, low-level user can, for example, store cross-site scripting somewhere, and an admin user can go to that page. You won't get an alert. We're not going to be obvious and put a pop-up alert. We're going to store something in there, whether it's a beef hook or some sort of key logging, or just, hey, give me this cookie and send it to this website. That's all we need. And if it's stored there, any user that accesses that page will be infected with what we're going to do. So stored is very, very, very dangerous. These other ones are a little harder to exploit because they involve some sort of social engineering aspect to them. Okay, let me take a drink of my claw, guys. How are we doing so far? Everybody good? Stream still okay? The weather's getting better. I've noticed less drop frames as well. So good stuff here. You can't see my pretty face? You'll see it here in a little bit, J Delta. Okay, so here we have we have our first challenge. Let's go back to the site. So if we come here, we want to do a DOM-based cross-site scripting, and it even gives us what we want to use. This is perfect. Just copy this. So just copy this here, and let's go back to this. Let's set some examples as well. So we can start trying to put this around and try to find it, right? Like, you want to fuzz everything that you can find. You want to fuzz parameters. We could say submit here. Okay, and this here is stored, right? If we were to close this out and come back in here, this is stored. Now, is it alerting? Are we doing anything here? No, it's not causing any kind of pop-up. We can see the code. This isn't doing it for us. But this is what a stored instance would look like. If somebody were to navigate to this and say, oh, crap, you know, there's the stored instance. So we can still look around. There's customer feedback. Unless that's somewhere that can get access, maybe we can exploit that. So probably not a good place. We can do the search bar. Now the search bar will be interesting, right? So let's take a look at the search bar. Let's search for something like test. And use the search feature here. Okay, and we can see that test came up, and you can see the query up here as being q equals test. So as of right here, what we can do is we can play around and see. We could just paste it in and see if it works, right? But to prove concept that this is DOM based, that we are not doing reflected, that this is interacting with the DOM here, let's do this. Let's make this an H1 on this test search. You can see the test gets inserted right here as well, right? When we search for test, it gets put in here. Let's search for H1 on the test. Holy shit, that just got bigger, right? And we can just start, I could put some break lines in, put a couple break lines, and then we can do maybe like an H3. Oh my God, something, right? And search for that, and look. Okay, it didn't take my break lines. But we could do something like that. Let's see if it takes those. It does. Okay. And you can see we're injecting here. We have absolute injection, but we're controlling what's on the page right here. This is never hitting the server. This is only hitting what's in front of us. So when we go and we get malicious and we just paste what they wanted us to paste, you can see that we get the cross-site scripting. Okay, so this is cross-site scripting. We injected this alert and told it to pop up on this page, and it did just that. You can see up here, we can do the exact same thing by just pasting what we have and submitting it, and it'll do it too. So we can fuzz either the search bar or the parameter. DOM is incredibly hard to find. DOM is not easy cross-site scripting. This is the easiest example that I could probably provide and will ever show you. There is a great example as well. If you go out to Google and you go to Portswigger, DOM XSS, you come over here and they've got their new academy, and it's It's fairly well thought out. They've got different topics as well. You come through here, it talks about the sources, it talks about the syncs. It gives you different labs to try this. So if you're weak or you feel like you might be weak in DOM base, and you just got to practice. But for me, I will be honest, DOM base is a weakness for me. I have found reflected a million times. I've found stored before. DOM is very, very difficult for me. So somebody asked, what's the application of this if it never hits the server? So what you could do, say you have this link here, right? You take this link and you send it to somebody maliciously. And you say, hey, I need you to open this link right now, or whatever. However you're going to social engineer against this. You get them to open the link. This link is going to have some code. It's not even going to look readable like this. It'll probably be URL encoded, and it just looks like a long link. And that link is what it's going to do is when they get here, it's not going to pop up XSS. It's going to say, hey, take the document.cookie and take that cookie and then send it off to this malicious server. So you have to get them to execute this. So anyway, base 64 encoding. You guys are funny. Okay. So this is a good example of a DOM, and that's how you could utilize it. Same thing with the reflected. You would send them some sort of social engineering malicious link with still cookies, etc. There's a lot of things we can do that I mentioned, and we'll talk about prevention here in a second. Can the cross-site scripting header prevent this? Yes, but there's a lot of other things. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to prevent it. It's just an added help. There's a lot more remediation. We'll talk about remediation here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and log in now and close out of this, and we'll go into our test. You just saw my old work email, guys. Good job. And I was at test.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Log in. And one of the challenges as well was to find the privacy policy. If you come into privacy and security, there's your privacy policy. Why is it having us do this? Why does it want us to read the privacy policy? Enumeration. It wants us to enumerate. We should be reading this. We should look at two-factor. We should look at change password. We should look at every single page and make sure that that's coming across when we're in our Burp Suite, right? All these new pages should be coming through. So super important for that. So anyway, in here, we have one more challenge if we go to the scoreboard. We got 8 out of 9. Should have 8 out of 9 right now. We need to find reflected cross-site scripting, same payload. Okay, they give us the payload, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. Copy that guy again. And all we're going to do is look for somewhere that we can inject it. Now, for the sake of time, I will go ahead and just show you where we're going to inject this and why this is reflected. So if we come here and we go to track orders, now we could search for an order and try to track it. Now it looks for the search here and doesn't find anything. Okay, we can come back and we can try to track orders again. Now you saw the text was in there. Maybe we can try to inject, right, and say test H1, see what comes back. Okay, looks a little bit bigger. And how about we just try to do that? And that pops the cross-site scripting alert. So that's it. That's just another, this is a reflected. We're not interacting here with the DOM. We're actually interacting with the page itself. So it's taking the request and then it's putting it through, and we are getting our cross-site scripting here. So that should be all of the scoreboard. Let's talk mitigation here really, really quick. So this was an easy week, right? Not too bad. We did the trivial challenges. We're going to get into some of the easier challenges, the easy challenges next week, and we'll We'll get into some of these, and then as we go, it should get a little bit more exciting. So on the remediation side of things, I think this would be easier to explain if I bring up a little notepad, so I will do that. Gedit XSS again. That's fine. Am I going to cover all the challenges? We sure are. Do all the challenges. So let's talk about the different ways we can improve here, right? We talked about the cross-site scripting header. Yeah, that's a good start. The main recommendations we make that when we find cross-site scripting, okay, encoding. So if we have something like script, what encoding will do is we can say, hey, when you see this come through, go ahead and actually convert it over, and we'll just make it into this. So that when we actually put it through and it hits the server, it looks more like this. Okay, so this is an example of what encoding is. So all we're doing is converting a control character into its escape sequence. That's it. So there's encoding. There's also what we call filtering. With filtering, it's kind of like encoding, but instead of replacing, we're just going to completely remove it. So if we have script, we're just going to say, get rid of those. Just put in script. So that's a little bit of difference there between encoding and filtering. There is also validation, right? So validation is just a comparison against a list. So if we're doing validation, we might say, hey, script tags, completely eliminate those. If you see those come through, I don't want that in there. So we're going to validate what's coming through the server before we actually run it, right? So we'll take that script tag, throw it away completely. So you'll have a list of payloads and things like that you would use to put into a list and validate against. And then lastly, there is sanitization, which is kind of like a combination of doing all these. So you'll do the escaping, filtering, validation, and you just ensure that nothing triggers. So I'll write that out, sanitization. So we talked about the header. Another thing is on your cookies, and we saw the cookie earlier. Let me bring it back up one more time. You saw that this is without a secure flag. Secure flags are important. If you look at your cookie, you can see that it's HTTP only. Okay. The other flag that we should see set on this here is called a secure flag. Now, the secure flag is used to prevent cookies from actually being observed. So if we were to do like a cross-site scripting attack and it said document.cookie or whatever, it was trying to take the cookie and steal it, the secure flag would remove that. It would not allow that to happen. So this is why you always recommend that when you see something like this on a web app pen test, this is a finding. You should always have the HTTP only, and you should always have the secure flag set. Both flags should be set. This will absolutely 100% come up in an interview. It's come up almost all the time for me when I've been interviewing. So this comes up. I've had what are the 3 types of cross-site scripting come up a bunch of times. I've had questions not only about cross-site scripting and how you find it and how you validate it, but again, how do you prevent it? What do you make a recommendation to a client, right? Encoding, filtering, validation, sanitization. So bunch of different ways here, right? And that is 9 o'clock on the dot. 1 hour lesson. I think this is perfect. We nailed it. So let's go ahead and close this out. We'll go over to some Q&A. Welcome to week 3 of web app pen testing. In this week, we are going to be covering, let me take myself off the screen. We're going to be covering some web app fun. We're going to quickly talk about announcements. I've got maybe 5 to 10 minutes worth of announcements, updates, errors, etc. What we're going to learn just as an overview. And then we are going to do some web app fun. We're going to cover a bunch of fun stuff. So moving forward, let's talk about announcements. No class on 9/11 or 9/18. Sad face. Sad face. I have to travel on 9/11, and on 9/18, I have to be prepping for another course that's going live on Saturday. So I will not be available. We will resume on 9/25. Now, I may be able to stream and off stream, but the time that goes into this in terms of lesson planning, I probably put anywhere from, I want to say 8 to 12 hours to get a stream ready for a week. So as of right now, it's a lot of work with the time crunch I've got for getting this class completed. So especially with traveling the week before. So with that being said, we will resume on 9/25. No stream on 9/11 for sure. Maybe a stream on 9/18. Maybe we'll do like a hacking stream or a hack the box or something along those lines. In terms of other things on the board, we now have some upcoming sponsorships. One of them the product will be arriving in about a week. It's very, very, very exciting. I'm going to be doing a review for a hacking product. And if it goes well, we're going to hopefully get some swag, get some cool tools, and do some good giveaways. On top of that, there are a couple other sponsorships that are coming up. I put out an announcement for this. There's one that is going to give away 5 small items, but still 5 items. And we'll talk about that as we get to it. So I can't name any names yet, but we will have some cool sponsors coming through. One of them being very hacking related. The other one more swag or tech. It's not really it's not really hacking related, but still. On top of that, there are 2 talks that I got picked up for this week. One I can officially announce, one I cannot. I will be speaking at B-Sides Charleston. So if you're in South Carolina, I'll be at B-Sides Charleston. I will also be at Wild West Hacking Fest. We should find out tomorrow about B-Sides Charlotte, and we will be announcing the other B-Sides or wherever that I got into is here in maybe a week or less. So for now, they've asked to keep it on the hush-hush. So upcoming sponsorships and talks, covered that. We now have some merch. You guys were begging for merch. So I just created a little channel on Teespring. It's tied to the YouTube channel. So if you ever come here, you want to buy a shirt with a pink or bluish greenish logo or a sticker or some dumb saying on a t-shirt, you're more than welcome. The store is now open. So, please, if you want to support the channel, this is a good way, and get some swag as well. So outside of all those announcements, I have made a mistake. Thank you, CMOS, for pointing this out. So last week, I said the secure flag prevented cross-site scripting, and I lied to you guys. I'm a liar. Okay, I said it prevented cross-site scripting. It does not prevent cross-site scripting. The secure flag prevents a cookie from being seen in clear text, meaning that if you're using HTTPS, somebody cannot strip that HTTPS out and show it in HTTP clear text. I get these confused big time. Why the hell is a secure flag not called HTTPS only? Because that would make logical sense. So the flag that we're talking about on the cookie is actually the HTTP only flag. HTTP only means that the cookie cannot be accessed through the client-side script. So we will not be able to steal a cookie client-side with the HTTP only flag set. Only the server can interact with that. So thank you again, CMOS, for pointing that out. That was a mistake on my part. So from here, what are we going to learn tonight? Well, we are going to work with some cross-site scripting. We're going to talk a little bit about sanitization bypassing. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about stored cross-site scripting for the first time tonight. So we covered DOM-based and reflected last week. Tonight we'll talk about stored. We are also going to talk about broken access control, which is OWASP number 5 on the top 10 list. And one of my favorites, we're going to start covering SQL injection, just the basics. I'm not going to overwhelm you. If you've never seen SQL before, this is a good start. So tonight are the easy challenges, right? Before they were trivial, tonight they're easy. We're going to cover pretty much all of them. I might leave 2 or 3 for you to figure out on your own. I might even give you a nudge or a hint if you need to. One of them we really can't solve without doing other ones, so I don't know why they put it in here. Well, honestly, this application was built to be prodded and find different security flaws and then go back and find the other ones and get rewards that way. But one of the challenges I don't think we can do in good faith, we could do it, but in good faith, we should discover more information before we go into it. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and dive in. I've got more slides. The rest of the slides are on cross-site scripting. So let's go ahead and just get started on our app. So I'm going to get into my handy dandy Kali machine. And we are going to be working on the juice shop. Get to your juice shop if you have not already. Get to your juice shop. From there, make sure you're on your scoreboard. If your scoreboard reset, which mine did, yours might reset as well. Make sure that you get to your scoreboard. You'll get the points here, whatever. It's no big deal. On top of this, make sure you load your Burp Suite. Today we'll be using Community. I noticed some of you would rather me use Community than Pro, and I completely understand and agree. So we'll be doing everything as proof of concept that we can do in Community as well. So I've got my scoreboard loaded up tonight. And if we come down to the easy challenges, let me see if I can tab off of this. Okay, if we come down to the easy challenges, again, I have arranged these logically. So logically, I want to start with cross-site scripting because last time we started or ended with cross-site scripting. So again, we should start here and then we'll move forward. So let's go ahead and start with cross-site scripting. We'll move into broken access control and a little bit of security misconfiguration, and then we'll dive into all the SQL injection fun stuff. So let's copy this down here, this script alert XSS. This is a very common one, right? So we're going to copy this and let's go ahead and log in because it says perform a cross-site scripting attack on a legacy page within the application. Now we prodded the exterior okay in terms of like forms that we could fill out last week and what we could do. We didn't go too detailed, right? But just to save a little time and not to poke around too much, we're just going to log in. And your account probably got reset, so I'm going to go ahead and register. If your account got reset, go ahead and register as well. It's going to be test@test.com. And what's our security question going to be? Our mother's maiden name was Bob. So let's register. And let's go ahead and log into the application. Okay, so we are logged into the application. Now from this area, let's go ahead and go to our profile. So you click on your little picture here and go to test@test.com. This is an area that we did not explore in last episode. So here we go. We have username input, email input. We've got a URL we can put here. So we've got some forms that we can put in. One thing that's interesting, let's say we want to give a username of test and we set the username. We see that the username is actually being stored right here and it's being stored right here. So maybe if we're lucky, we can just paste this in, right? And set the username and see what happens. Well, crap. What is it doing here? It is sanitizing our script, right? And what's interesting about this is it took off, it looks like what it's taking off is script A. So it's taking off script A here. Now, we could try to get around this, maybe a little bit of bypassing. So for example, we could write script A, and if we know that the A is there, what if we write a second A and see if that changes anything? Maybe we can get it to finally say alert if we set the username here. Okay, so that works. So we added a double A and got that to work. Now, can we take that farther at all? I wonder if we could go something like script like this, and maybe it'll take it out for us. And if we do this, we get this in here, but it's still taking out that script A. So this is where cross-site scripting gets a little fun. You can tell that there are some flaws here, right? It's not taking out the closing of the script. It's not taking out the alert. It's only sanitizing on a little bit. So we have the ability here to, to try a bunch of different payloads and see what works. We can fuzz this and keep going and see how possibly we can break this and make this work in our favor. Another thing that should be noted, if you go out to Google, there are, if this will work, there are some Proxyon. It's not okay. There are some things like if we say cross-site scripting payloads, there's cheat sheets and stuff out there like this cross-site scripting payloads, payload.txt. If you come here, you can look at all the different payloads. Look at all these different payloads here. So this is something that maybe you can throw into Burp Intruder and play around with and see. There's other tools like XSSer. I could type that out for you, but XSSer. You can play around with these tools, or you can do it manually. For this lesson, we're just gonna play with it manually and see how we can actually get this to work. So we realize that when we put double in there, it works, right? Maybe we can do script something like this, but let's see if that works. Nope, still sanitizing it. So it's picking up that the word script is in there, even if we're doubling up. So we can double up in some places and make it work. How about we break it? How about we get it to sanitize something and then not sanitize the rest? Let's try using a what's called a bitwise. We can use a bitwise and or XOR. Here's an example. We can say something like, and if you're following along here, let's do an or. Let's just say or here. Okay, this is going to get executed. Then the rest of it is going to stay the same. And this is going to stay the same. This will get executed, sanitized, and the rest will go away. And I just screwed that up a little bit. Let's try that now. If I could get it correct. So you're going to want AA script. I screwed that up. There you go. Something like this, right? We're going to get the script to execute here and then set the username, and that should pop. That should pop. Now this will work. This will work with any of the bitwise operators here, right? So we could say a XOR like this and get this to execute. That should work. Same thing with the and. We can use and as well. It's just pulling this operation out and then pushing the rest through. And this is how you kind of start working through logically. If you see sanitization, how can you improve it? And sometimes what you see a lot of times is these script tags are removed. So when you have these script tags removed, how are you going to alert the cross-site scripting? Well, you might be able to come through and do something like an image, like they're doing here, or this is a very, very common one. You load an image that doesn't exist, and because that doesn't exist, it creates an alert, right? So on air, here's an alert. So with that, we actually have stored cross-site scripting here. If we were to refresh, you could see that cross-site scripting still exists. Even if we go back and we come back into the profile, this cross-site scripting is stored. It is stored on the server. So this is no bueno, right? This is not good. So this is what we're talking about when we can attack another user. Now, say this was a low-level account and somehow, some way, the username interacts with the admin account in some way, right? If the admin account sees this and gets that cross-site scripting, that stored cross-site scripting, maybe this steals a cookie, or maybe this does keylogging, or injects a beef hook, or something along those lines that is malicious, this can get really bad when it comes to affecting other users. So let's go ahead and cross that one off the list. So we've completed one challenge. We completed the cross-site scripting tier. Okay, so from here, let's talk about a couple other ones really quick. Most of our time tonight is going to be spent on SQL injection. So these two should go by pretty quick. So we're going to talk about broken access control. And the broken access control here is this basket access tier 1. Now, we're going to view another user's shopping basket. We should not be able to do that. If we can view somebody else's items, that means we have broken access control, right? We are crossing against the access boundaries and getting access to things we shouldn't. So if we come to the home page and we just let's add some apple juice to our cart. And it should say, hey, we place it into the basket. So let's go to the basket and see what's up in here. Okay, we've got apple juice. Perfect. So from here, we can do some things. Let's inspect an element. And we really want to focus on what's in this cart, right? And what's in this cart is likely in this storage here. Now, we've got different types of storage. What we're likely interested in is the session storage here. So if we go down into the session storage, you can see that we have a bid value. Now, our bid value at the moment is 6. If we were to change this bid value to a different number, it's a possibility that we can access somebody else's, right? So we can go into 5, perhaps. And if we go into 5 and refresh the page, let's see if this is apple juice anymore. There's nothing there. Let's try 1. Refresh the page on that. Okay, there's a new cart. So you can see here we've accessed somebody's cart. We're still under our account. We're still under test@test.com, which is what I set up. However, the issue here is that we can delete these, or we can even go and start checking out. But we can really mess with somebody's cart. We can delete the cart items. We can get malicious, piss them off. So all this, somebody asked what bid stands for. This is just a key value pair. So if you've ever done programming, this is key value, right? So this is your cart and your ID of your cart. So your cart ID, or this user's cart ID, is 1. This user's cart ID, if we switch over, is 2. Buyer ID, exactly. You're probably right on the buyer ID. And yes, this is going to be on VOD. Always on VOD, guys. So this is the value that we're changing in this key value pair. So our cart lives at 6, but we're accessing other people's carts in a way that we shouldn't. And this is a very, very, very basic example of broken access control. Basket ID, is it basket ID? I'm down for any of these. Basket ID works as well, guys. Call it whatever we want. So, okay. From here, pretty easy. If we go to your scoreboard, you should have popped this. And now we've got 2 out of 10. So we'll cover more broken access control in depth as we go. These easier challenges, again, very easy. As we get into the medium, and they get extensively more difficult and deeper. You see, we did 9 and 10. We're going to end up doing 19, 21, 16, 11. So if you were to look through your guide, we're not even a 10th of the way through the guide, really. What's up, Action? Thanks for the sub, man. I appreciate it. Okay, so next one I want to talk about really quick is a security misconfiguration. So this is the deprecated interface. So if we talk about deprecated interface, it says use a deprecated B2B interface that was not properly shut down. Now, this one might have been difficult with the hint that was here to solve. This isn't really, I don't know if this is the best description. Some of these don't have the best descriptions on what you're looking for. And again, I think that you're probably supposed to go through and just kind of prod around and see what you can get. Now, where this issue lies is actually in the upload element, right? So if we go into a contact us and we say, hey, we want to complain, in here, it allows us to select a file. Now, if we go and look at the file supported types, we have the ability to upload a PDF and a zip. If we were to upload anything else, we're going to run into an issue. But maybe it is supporting other types and we just don't see it. So a way we can tell is actually in our debugger here. If we click on the debugger, if you still have your console open or your inspector open, and you're on main, make sure you make your main pretty. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do a Control F for find, and we're going to look for zip files. Let's try dragging this up. So if we search for something like zip and we come through here, right away, the first thing that comes through in this JavaScript is the allowed MIME type. And you can see that it says this uploader, okay? And this is the file uploader. We're doing a file upload. And what's happening here is it says, hey, we can upload application PDF, application zip, 3 different types of zips, right? But we can also upload XML files. So that can get malicious very, very quick, especially if we're talking XXE, which we haven't got to XXE yet. Hey, thanks, DowShock. Appreciate that. So we haven't got to XXE, but when we talk XXE, as we will in this course, you can see how XML can become malicious. For now, let's just try uploading a XXE or XML file. I'll do one that's kind of semi-malicious. It's not going to do anything because it's not complete. Thank you, PyTutor. Appreciate it, man. And I have this on copy and paste, but I will actually use this opportunity to paste this, let you guys copy this, and take a quick drink break because my mouth is dried out already. All right. Good time for a question as well. So what does XXE mean? XXE is XML external entities. So what we can do is upload an XML file. And this is a very basic example. I can show you a payload real quick. Let's go to Google, shall we? And we'll say XXE payloads. Let's take a look at some payloads here. Let's click the first one. So you can come through here and see what we can do and how we can use these attacks. There's some in here that will just show you like the Etsy shadow file of a system or Etsy password. And they're talking out of bounds, meaning that it can talk back to us, right? So there's a lot of things that we can do here. These are some good ones. You can find a bunch of different payload types. But as of right now, we're not focusing too much on XXE. We'll get there as we cross that bridge. But here's one where it's just, file Etsy password. And if we're able to, we can pull out the Etsy password file. So, okay. And if you guys ever want to see a good video or two on XXE, check out Stoke, S-T-O-K, on YouTube. That dude is his passion is XXE. He's a bug bounty hunter. XXE is his passion. I would trust him more than anybody else, more than myself on this topic, especially with XXE stuff. So if you want to see some cool things that he's done before in the past, very great channel to check out. So anyway, so yes, we are logged in here and we can now come through and somebody's going in and solving the problems ahead of time. That's absolutely fine. So, okay. I've got this saved here. We can just save this as an XML file. We'll just call it test.xml and I'll put it on the desktop. And we can just go browse, home, desktop. We got to do all files and then we'll grab this test.xml and then just say testing and submit it. And you can see that use a deprecated B2B interface that was not properly shut down. We have solved this problem. So what has happened here is they meant to disable XML, but they left XML as an application type in for the uploads, and now we bypassed it, right? So we can get malicious with this in the future. As of right now, we just want to make sure that we can actually upload this file. And that is it for this. So from here, we're going to go ahead and get into SQL injection. So let me bring up the handy dandy PowerPoint. And let's talk SQL injection. Okay, so what is SQL injection? SQL injection is an attack in which malicious SQL statements are injected into a SQL database. Okay, so SQL injection is easy to avoid, but still happens quite often. If we're successful, we can do a lot of malicious things. We can read sensitive databases. We can extract that information that we read. We can modify, delete databases, and we can even get a shell out of this. Okay, so potentially we can get a reverse shell or some type of shell and access the machine as a user. Sometimes what you'll find is that you get a shell on a SQL machine or a database, and you might be the SQL user, but that SQL user has admin or domain admin privileges, and it gets really bad really quick. So bad permissions on users like this happens very, very often as well. Okay, so let's talk about some common SQL verbs, and we're going to put this all to use here in just a minute. So SQL statements begin with verbs. The most common one that you're going to ever see is select, okay? Select means that we're retrieving data from a table. We can also insert data into a table, delete data, update data. We could be old drops here, right? And do a drop, which deletes a table. And we've got union statements as well, which we'll run into in the future. And that just combines multiple queries, right? Or data from multiple queries. So these are very, very, very common. These aren't all inclusive by any means, but very common as to what you're going to see. Every language is a little bit different depending on the SQL database that you're in, but these are pretty common across the board. So from here, we need to talk a couple other common terms that we're going to see. One is where. So where filters records based on a specific condition, and you're going to see an example of this in a minute. We have and, or not. They sound exactly like they are. They are conditional statements, and it filters records based on multiple conditions. Then we have order by, which sorts in ascending naturally or descending order if you specify. Okay, so I've typed up a little table here. We've got 5 users in this SQL database. Okay, we've got user IDs of 1 through 5, got a username, got their full name, and their email address, and then their country code. Now, this table here, this table is called the users table. That's what I have named it for this demonstration. So let's talk a few statements and talk about what would happen if we were to execute these statements. Now, the first statement, this is very common. Select asterisk from users. Okay, remember select, we're selecting all data when we do a wildcard here. Okay, this is a wildcard, as we're going to see in a minute. This is just a wildcard. Asterisk means everything. From, and then we're going to grab it from the users table. So if we ran this statement, we're returning every single thing that's in this table. So if we've got SQL injection and we run this statement, we can get all the data out of an entire table, right? Just from this one little statement. Okay, so now let's talk about more specific things. Let's say we wanted to select user ID and username from this user table. Okay, we will select user ID, username. All we're going to grab are these 2 columns right here. We'll grab all the data that's in here, and that's it. Okay, let's add on to these. Let's say we want to grab everything from users, but only where the country is equal to Russia. Okay, if we only pull from Russia, then we're only pulling out Natasha here, right? So, because she's the only Russian in this group of 5. So if we ran that query, we would pull out Natasha. And then the last one, if we're going to select star from users where country equals US, well, if we just do this, we'll pull out 4, right? And username equals Frank, then we're just going to pull out anybody with the username of Frank, which hopefully the usernames aren't reused. So we'll just pull out Frank Castle here and all of his information. So maybe we can pull everything from users where username equals admin. So, yes, I will share my slides. All right. So from here, let's talk special characters really quick. So special characters, these are some important things that you're going to see. You're going to see something like this apostrophe or single quote or double quote, right? These are string delimiters. We'll talk about these in a second. You'll see why they're important. We have these comment delimiters here. We've got wildcards. You just saw a wildcard, and this is also a wildcard, the percentage sign. You saw, if you looked in the back one, that or if you looked back one slide, let's see if I can go back a slide. We're ending our SQL statements with the semicolon, right? So that ends a SQL statement. And then the rest that you're going to see here, they follow programmatic logic. So if you can think of what an equal sign or plus sign, greater than, less than, etc., if you know what these do, and this does functions right here, if you know any programming at all, this follows that logic. So that is, I believe, it. Yes, that's it for the little SQL overview. That is where we're at here. Okay, now one of our objectives before we log out is to gain access to the administrator, right? So we are going to do admin login. Now for this, we're going to use SQL injection. So let's talk about how this is going to work. So if we log out and we go to log back in, and let me pull up, actually this will be fine, this XML doc. Let's talk about what we're doing. Let's say I've got an email address here, and I say the email that I'm going to provide, I'll just say the user's test and the password's test. And we say, okay, log in. It's not going to work, right? We have no idea what the administrator is, what's happening here. What's going on, though, is let's see what's going on possibly behind the scenes, right? So what we're doing is we're going to say the input that we just did was test, right? And the SQL that's going behind that might look something like this. Select from users where email is equal to test. Something like that, right? So we put in test, and in goes test to this situation. Now I'm going to copy this and paste this. Now what happens if we were to put a single quote at the end here? So if we put a single quote, that puts a single quote here. And now, logically, this doesn't make sense. This statement is not complete, right? The statement is incomplete. And we could test that by putting a quote here. And you can see the object, we're getting that error. And if we come back and we can intercept this request in Burp Suite and send this over to a repeater and see the response, you can see we get the SQLite error. And this is one of the issues from last time, right? Was to generate an error. This is what we're doing. We're generating an error here. So we've generated this error because this logically doesn't make sense. And this SQL injection, lucky for us, is not blind. We're getting a response back. So actually, look, I wrote this out, And this is exactly what's happening. I didn't realize that this is what's going on, but we got the statement pretty spot on. So the SQL query that it's doing is select from users where email is equal to, okay, test, and password is equal to this, and deleted at is null. So we don't know what the rest of this is, but we're grabbing different columns here, right? And doing a statement here. So, okay, well, how can we take this and get malicious with it? Let's copy this one more time. I'm going to show you a very, very common way that this is done. So say we have test, and we've got this test here, and our statement's incomplete, right? We've got this. Let's delete this for now. Let's say we're back at test. What if we did something like this? We put the single quote, we say, or 1 equals 1, finish that statement out, and then end it with a comment. Okay, now let's take a look at what this looks like when we put it into here. Okay, we got test. This is now broken. And we say, or 1 equals 1, like that. Okay, so now we are finishing out where we started. And this is, so we've got a complete statement here, right? And this is perfect. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, this condition, which is not true, or this condition, 1 equals 1, which is true, that's a conditional statement, right? False or true is true. So because this is true, this is going to log us in as the first item in the database. The first item in the database for us just happens to be the administrator. So we can enter this in. We don't even have to put tests in there. You could literally just do that. And you can put in whatever password you want. And attempt to log in. I might need to refresh here. Oh, I've got the proxy intercepted is the issue. Okay, and now you should be able to log in. You come over here, you see that we are admin at juice.sh.op. Okay, so we are the administrator account. You can see I was playing around in here earlier. So, okay, we're the administrator account. And now we have a few other things that we need to do as the administrator. One of those is to find the administration page. We can try typing in admin and seeing if that works. Let's refresh. Okay, we could try typing in administration and seeing if that works. Let me copy this. And you might have to actually new tab it and then go. See if that works. Okay, so you see in here that we access the administration page. The other way to really do this, now this is just me saying, hey, from experience, I know most admin areas are called admin or administration, and that's just experience, right? Typically is how this works. So maybe it's not. You could, the other way would be to inspect the element and go into your debugger, go to your main, and go to your pretty main and start searching. And we just say admin or administration and look for that, right? And then we look for the page that it's titled with. So that's another way to find that, is to search in the pages here in the main JavaScript. Exactly. So somebody asked about why it logged in as the admin, because it's pulling that first account. Let me pull over. Let me put up the slides again. So the admin account, sorry, say it was Frank here, right? Whatever account was the first in that that database, it's typically an admin. Not always, but you run into the issue where it's an admin in the first user ID here, or whatever the first account is. That's who gets logged in. Okay, so we're at the admin page. From the admin page, we have a mission that was tasked to us, which was to delete all 5-star reviews. We can take care of that real quick. Screw the customers, screw their 5-star feedback. We're a malicious person, right? So we got rid of all 5-star reviews as well. And what else do we have to do here? Last one. It wants us to log in as the admin user. So we know the email address. Let's copy this email address. It wants us to log in as the admin user, but without using SQL injection. So let's log out. Let's ponder how we might do this. Okay, we could sit here and brute force manually, but why do something that can be done for us by a machine, right? So let's intercept this request. Let's go to login. Did it work? Oh, forward. Okay. So we've got this. Let's right click now and send this over to intruder. Your intruder tab should light up. And if we go into positions, it's all green. We don't want all that. So let's go ahead and just hit clear. Okay, so from here, we have set our email address, which we want to be constant, so we're going to leave that alone. But the password, we want to brute force on this password here. So let's highlight the password we typed in. I typed in admin. It could be whatever you want. And let's just go ahead and hit add for this. So this is going to set a position here. This is position 1. Now, as of right now, and what we've done this entire time is use the sniper attack. We're going to continue using the sniper attack. It is a one-off on one payload, right? So we're sniping. We're right on one. So we're gonna parse through a password list on the constant of an email, but a variable here of password. So if we go into payloads, now we can paste in a list that we find. We can go out to sec lists or anything like that. What's up, Black Sheep? Thanks for the raid, buddy. How's it going, man? So we can come into here and an intruder, and we could paste a list. Now, there are great lists out there. If we go to Google and we say, one of the best lists out there is sec list. Now, intruder is going to be very slow, and I've got my proxy on because I'm dumb. So intruder is going to be slow on the free edition. And what we can do is we could say seclist, and we'll just do GitHub. Seclist is a great resource. This first link here, right? Click on this, and look at all the different lists that are coming through here. So discovery, fuzzing, passwords. Look at passwords. All different kinds of passwords in here. Top 10, top 100, top 1000. You can just pull from one of these lists and kind of go from there. I did check through a couple of these lists, and while the password that we're going to find is going to be weak, it wasn't in some of the easy ones like top 10, top 100, or even top 1000. I don't think it was in top 10,000. And because intruder is slow for us on Burp free edition, what we're going to do instead is we're going to do a proof of concept on how you could use it in Pro. And I'm just going to type out a few passwords here, and then one of them is going to pop. We'll see why it pops or how it pops and how we can identify that. So we can say from this, we can just say admin. You can see all my old ones. We'll do admin, admin 1, admin 2, admin 3. Oops, admin 1, 2, 3, admin 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's try all these, right? And all we have to do, you can see we only have one payload to set. We're using a simple list. It's fine. Hit start attack. It's going to say, hey, you suck for not having the Pro Edition. We're going to slow you down. Okay, what stands out more than anything here? There's a few things that we can sort on when we're looking for successful brute force logins. One of them is status code. We can click status code. Okay, admin123 has logged in at a 200. 200 means okay, right? On top of this, length is a big one. It's not always the status code. The status code might be a 302, a redirect. It could be something completely different, right? But the length might be different significantly. I have seen that happen before. I've seen an instance where I was attacking a client and I was getting a redirect back to the home page with valid credentials, but the length was different. The length was different, and it was giving me a session token. I wasn't getting a session token with anything else. So because it was setting a cookie in the response and the length was different than the rest of them, I could tell that I was actually getting a successful login, even though it was taking me back to a home page login screen. So I knew from there I had valid credentials. So if you don't know your status codes, probably good to learn those. The common ones, the 200, 300, 400 series, and just what those mean. Even 500s are important as well. But here we go. We got 200. 200 means okay, right? The length is longer than the rest. That's good as well. Another thing that we could do is say this admin login, right? And let's look at the response on the admin login. We could see that we had invalid email or password, which, by the way, this is good. This is good security practice. So you don't want to disclose, you don't want to say invalid password or invalid email. If you see that on a finding that's enumeration, we could tell if a user's invalid or not, or a password's invalid or not, and that's just bad, right? So here we're seeing invalid email or password. This is the correct way to word these things, but you would be surprised. And the last assessment I had a week ago, I had invalid email only on there. So username enumeration is still very real. So we've got admin123 coming through, but we can also copy this invalid email or password, and we can come in, we can actually grep on that. We can do options down here, and I don't know if it lets us grep in free. It does. So we could paste in a grep exact match. We could just take that. We can remove all these right here if we wanted to. Just copy this and paste it in. And then the next time we run this, it should grep on those when it finds those in the response. See here? Okay, see the checkbox that did not come up? So you know when you sort by the checkbox that this response here is at least different. It doesn't mean it has to be valid for sure, but it's at least different than the rest of these where you know it's invalid. So this is a cool feature to use as well. I use it all the time. So we know the password is admin123. I've gone on a little rant about that, but hopefully that was okay. All right, let's delete this. Do I have? I don't. What is the stupid? Here it is. Okay, and we have logged in successfully. Xfinity allows anyone on a network to see all connected devices when you visit the router page. This could be enumeration. Yeah. Yep, you can see all devices and plus some IP addresses sometimes, and a lot of routers are that way. A lot of home routers are that way. Okay, so let's see. We have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these. All these are good. Okay, so we're through the SQL injection. We're through the admin stuff. Now, there are 3 other ones I want to talk about. If we come through down here, there's 3 that we have left. This weird crypto, I don't think we can do tonight. So it's telling us to do something about informing the shop with a contact form. But when you look at it, it's not solvable without knowing about the crypto that's going behind the scenes. And a lot of those come in the later challenges. We could do it, but it would feel a little bit like cheating. So there are two that we could talk about. Now, this one here, actually, I'm going to leave these both to you, but I'm going to give you hints on both of these. This one, this login MC safe search. Now, there is a YouTube video out there. We go here. I'm not going to play this because YouTube is very particular and I don't want to get it dinged for a copyright or anything. If you go to College Humor, a rapper who is very concerned with his password security or with password security, listen to the rap song, okay? And then find his email address with the admin panel and log in with the user, okay? Figure out what his password is, he tells you in the song, and log in. That's one. Item number 2, security policy. Behave like any white hat should. This is very vague. And this corresponds to this here. So if you go to securitytxt.org, this is a proposed standard they are trying to put out there to put a security.txt file on applications. So that way, if you were to find something malicious, you could report it to somebody without being concerned. If you still, okay, let's put this back a little bit. You still can't go around hacking people or being malicious without permission. But if you were to stumble across something and you were concerned that reporting it might lead to jail time or something like that, you could look for this file. I'm going to show you something else in a second. There's a very, very famous case out there where somebody changed a number. Let's just say it was equals 1. They were able to change to 2, to 3, to 4, right? Indirect object referencing, and pull data for other people. Now, when they reported this, they went to jail. So be very, very, very careful. Now, there's a website out there for disclose.io. Disclose.io is a great website. Okay, so this is for Safe Harbor, where you can actually do research and submit things here. You can search on different vendors and see if they exist in the disclose.io, and hopefully they're on that list. Hopefully we get more people on this list, but this is super, super important. You can't just go hacking around. So this is what this is about. So I will leave this to you to follow the instructions on this website to find this flag here. And also got a YouTube user to block for asking for black hat stuff. Anyway, okay, so it is 8:55. We finished a little early, but hopefully this was informative for you. I think next week will be another good week, but I mean we got to cover again cross-site scripting, got to see what stored really looks like, and we got to see SQL injection as well, and start talking about it. There's going to be plenty more SQL injection, and it's going to get way more rigorous than what you saw tonight. You saw the base example of the 1 = 1 conditional statement. Welcome to Web App Testing Week 4, my people. So Week 4, what are we going to be talking about? Well, you'll find out here in just a second. So again, we're going to do some announcements, 5 to 10 minutes, probably on the 5-minute side, if we're being honest. We'll say 5 minutes and then we'll continue on. So from here, let's go ahead and go next. Somebody said that the Discord link isn't working. Do that. If that link's not working, I don't know why it would be expired. I just checked it a couple minutes ago, actually. So, okay. So again, no class a week from today or a week after a week from today. So 2 weeks from today, we are going to have no class. We will resume episode 5 on 9/25. 9/25. So we may do a stream on the 18th. We will not be doing a stream on the 11th. I will not have time to prep on the 18th for anything that would be worthy of you fine people. So because of that, I don't want to put material out there. We talked about it last week, just throwing it out again in case some of you weren't there. Just want to make sure that you're aware. No, nothing on the 11th or on the 18th. So upcoming talks, I've got some local talks on the 13th and the 17th at a couple of colleges nearby. If you're in North Carolina and attend college, maybe you'll be there. Otherwise, upcoming talks, as you can see my schedule here. So if you want to come hang out, come see me. I'll be bringing stickers, give some stickers out, hang out, good old deal. B-Sides Charlotte, B-Sides Raleigh, Wild West Hackenfest, and B-Sides Charleston in that order. So we'll be rolling with that. 3 of those are on Active Directory pen testing. One of those is on a non-technical on being a cybersecurity mentor. So hope to see you guys out in some of these. Moving forward, Patreon, thank you. It is the first of the month, or at least for me, first stream of the month. And I owe you guys some thank yous. Thank you, James, Kermit, Hugo, William, David, and Lane for being the $15 tier higher. You guys are really awesome. Thank you to all the other Patreon as well. I think there's 30-something of you. It's amazing. You guys really do help go a long way for the channel, for creating great content and just, delivering back to the community. So thank you so much for helping out. Okay, let's talk about quickly what we're going to learn today. So we're going to talk about cross-site scripting again, 3 weeks in a row, stored again, but this time we're going to do it through an API. Ooh, right? So we haven't done API cross-site scripting yet. We'll do that. We're also going to be covering XXE, XML external entities. So we'll talk about that in way more detail, and then I'll throw you some links of people who do it better than I do. So we'll talk about those as well, but we'll be hacking all the entities. And we'll be talking again about broken access control. This is the second time we'll be talking about this. We'll be forging lots of stuff due to some broken access. And you can see I've started notating that what part of the OWASP top 10 these are on. We'll be covering all the OWASP top 10 at some point or another. We'll also be talking about input validation, and we'll be actually using an example of an admin account takeover that I have seen in the real world during a pen test. So I will show you what this looks like, and it's fascinating going through this because I have seen this happen before. So it is very realistic. And then we'll talk about broken anti-automation. So we'll talk about defeating CAPTCHAs one repeater request at a time. Okay, so somebody asked, are we still in Juice Shop? We are always in Juice Shop, my friends. And YouTube is down for my YouTube people. YouTube is down. Okay, so this is what is XXE. We're not quite there yet. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's jump into our machine. So get into a Kali machine. All I've done so far is that I have started Burp Community, right? So Burp Community's up. I've set 2 targets. Now I asked you guys to create a local host target via email. If you are not on the mailing list, you're not in the Discord channel, you missed this email. But in order to do XXE, we have to have it locally. We're not gonna get XXE off of a Heroku instance. So what we're going to do is we're going to exploit XXE on this local host. So I have 2 instances running, one via the Heroku app and then one via localhost. So we'll focus most of our attacks on Juice Shop via the Heroku. But if you are following along and you're on the emails or the Discord channel, then localhost as well. Okay, so other than that, we are at a scoreboard. We've got the scoreboard up and should be pretty much cleared out. I've got just the one for finding the scoreboard. So we've got about, I want to say 11 or 12 that I picked out of this list that we're going to go through. Some of these we're not going to go through because I thought they were kind of either cheesy or that they just really weren't uber realistic or super repetitive. So I skipped some of these. Now, if you want to go back and read through some of these, you're more than welcome. But in reality, we're going to skip a few of these and just focus on the ones that I thought were important and realistic. So I've, again, ordered these strategically as best as I can. And we're going to start tonight right from the top. So we're actually going to start with the admin registration, then we'll kind of bounce around. So the first one is going to be admin registration, and this is going to be input validation. So with input validation, you're going to see when we try to register for a user, what kind of response comes back from the API, and what can we do with that response.